Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Heidi, and today on this episode, I am talking about some strange and weird news stories that I have found. The first one, which I want to get out of the way, not because it's like something that saddens me, which is usually why I want to get certain weird news stories over with and spoken about, because I feel like this a little bit overlaps with social media, but I just thought it was really funny and I couldn't wait until the social media podcast, so I just wanted to share it now. Also because it relates to a recent event that occurred, which is the Golden Globes. I don't know if any of you out there like the Golden Globes. I personally really like awards shows, so I mean, also because I like movies and film in general, and like award shows are so like into the history and the past of film, which I enjoy. I enjoy like old cinema and old Hollywood. I mean, for certain things. Other parts of old Hollywood sucked, but I enjoy the history. I think it's interesting. So I really like the Golden Globes, which is why I was a little more interested in this story. And it is also funny, which is another reason why I want to share it. If you do not have a guess for what I'm talking about, it is the Fiji Water Girl who really stole the spotlight at the Golden Globes. The reason I think this is a social media story, it could be, is because I saw it come up onto my social media. I know that it came up on Twitter a fair amount, but it's a little strange because it's not what you would normally expect from social media related to an awards show, specifically Golden Globes. So many are saying that the true story of the 2019 Golden Globes was the Fiji Water Girl. The Fiji Water Girl is a brunette woman who photobombed many of the red carpet photos and photobombed many red carpet stars like Jamie Lee Curtis, Jim Carrey. This woman, she is like a model on the red carpet who is meant to, she like dresses nice, she dresses for a red carpet event, and she walks around holding a tray with like Fiji water bottles for anyone who wants water while they're on the red carpet. And she's in like a blue dress, which actually matches the Fiji water bottle. And she's standing around and she ends up in so many red carpet photos. It's actually unbelievable. I didn't know that it happened this much. Honestly, when watching the Golden Globes, I actually did see her live, but I didn't think about it much until it got pointed out on social media. I was like, they're right. She is everywhere. So, I mean, good on her for getting those photos. The woman who is the Fiji Water Girl, she has been identified as Kellith Cuthbert, who is a Los Angeles-based model. And she has an impeccable ability to get herself into so many photos and TV shots, and so many people noticed. So, as I said, this came up on Twitter. I just want to read a couple comments. Mostly people would comment with like a picture from the Golden Globes where you could just see her. It's so clear. She's not even like kind of in the background. Like, there are a fair amount of people in the background who's like, it's like just their head or something. But she is like almost full body shot in the photo. Really impressed. One Twitter user said, stunning. I couldn't imagine even breathing in the breathing. Sorry, I read that bad. Stunning. I couldn't even imagine breathing the same air as the Fiji Water Girl. And it's just a picture of some stars on the red carpet, and the Fiji Water Girl like full body shot, really, in the photo. Another one said, the Fiji Water Girl serving looks, opportunity seeking at its finest. Get it, queen. And like, really, in so many of these photos, it looks like she's posing. Like, she is giving the camera looks. And some other ones, she's not necessarily posing, like she might be blinking. But it also, like, she is in a pretty bright blue dress, which is why I really think she stands out so much. And she's often like in front of like, like the hedge background or the Golden Globe sign. So she really does stand out against like the dark backgrounds that often appear. Another Twitter quote that I saw was over a Photoshopped picture of Andy Samberg and Sandra Oh, who hosted the Golden Globes. And they photoshopped the Fiji Water Girl in it. And it's the quote is, "So glad Fiji Water Girl is now hosting the Golden Globes." And it just it looks like she's on the stage, which she was not. But they did a pretty good job at photoshopping, at least enough to get their joke across, because she was in so many photos. So good for her. This article actually got a hold of this model, and she told the Los Angeles Times that her photographic nature isn't an accident. In quotes, "It's all strategic. You've got to angle." So, I mean, she is angling. I can really see it. All of like the good, like kind of like she's at a side and then she kind of looks back a little bit. The classic, I feel like Kim Kardashian pose. I mean, many do it. I just always think of Kim Kardashian. But like, she's kind of like, it's almost like an ominous look. She's really like, it's not a smile. Like, it's not maybe a hint at a smile. You can definitely tell that she's a model because she is really working it. She also mentioned, and this was to the cut, that her sometimes ominous appearing photobombs were calculated, in quotes. I don't really know what that means. I guess she planned to look ominous. I don't know. It's kind of weird that you plan to look ominous, but whatever. Also, Cuthbert made a splash, so much of a splash that a parody Twitter account, it's at Fiji Water Girl, was already made in her honor, and it's been posting some memes about the Fiji Water Girl. I have seen one where it's like photoshopped, where it's her just like, it was kind of weird. It's her just like pouring Fiji water like into the mouth of a monkey, which is kind of strange. I don't think it's that funny, but I think it's pretty funny that she appeared in she photobombed so many. Also, Fiji Water seemed to be in on the joke, which again is funny. And this is at Fiji Water on their Twitter. They said, "We're so glad everyone is talking about our water." And then senses ominous presence. "She's right behind us, isn't she?" Hashtag Fiji Water Girl. So I think Fiji Water, good on them for being in on the joke. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I smiled when I read it. I wouldn't say I didn't laugh out loud. I didn't LOL. Granted, now laugh out loud or whatever, now LOL just basically means I'm not mad at you. So I guess I LOL'd when I read this from Fiji Water. But good on her. Man, she really got in a lot of these photos. So I'm proud of her. I don't know her, but good job. Way to work it. I don't know if you'll ever get hired back for this show. I feel like maybe the Golden Globes didn't like all the photobombing, but I mean, you still made an internet sensation. So there are some memes, and I think it's funny that Fiji Water is in on it. Good press for them. The next story that I want to share is about a Florida couple. I feel like every weird news, there's always something about Florida. Like every social media story that we do on the social media podcast is somehow involves the Kardashians / Kardashian West family, or Kanye in general. I feel like every weird news episode somehow includes Florida, or at least like during the week there is at least one episode of weird news where we mention Florida. Classic Florida. Okay, anyway, so a Florida couple has seemed to master the room and dash tactic because they racked up a hotel bill in excess of $10,000 before bolting without paying. That is amazing. Like, that's not good. Like, no one should do that, but I'm impressed. I would not. I have a guilty conscience, so there's no way I would be able to get away with that. There's, just no way at all. But that is interesting. So good for them. The couple is Ashley and Lee Rowe. They were arrested after they avoided paying a large hotel bill accumulated over 3 months. How does one do that? How does a hotel for 3 months? I mean, what hotel is that? I should go to that hotel. They have a very lenient billing policy, apparently. And the Rose stayed, this is the hotel. They stayed at the Hampton Inn in Key Largo from October 20th to December 11th. And this was on 5 separate occasions. And each time they checked out without paying the bill. That's incredible. The hotel manager told police the couple initially didn't provide a credit card because they checked into their room through the hotel's reward program. Again, what reward program lets me get in for free? I want that program. The couple eventually provided a credit card that the hotel staff later discovered was stolen, so they even tried to pretend like they were paying, but then actually weren't because it was a stolen card. And the manager tried reaching out to Ashley Rowe on social media, but was ultimately blocked, and that's according to the police. So I'm surprised they didn't just call the police immediately. Maybe it was like, oh, they're like such great like rewards programs members. We don't want to make them angry. I would just call the police. But the authorities caught up with Ashley and Lee Rowe and arrested them on a charge of grand theft between $10,000 and $20,000. Yeah, that seems about right. I can't believe they got away with it for so long. I feel like this probably has to happen more than I think it does. I don't know. Also, I'm amazed they did it. Again, I have such a guilty conscience. I could never do that. So I'm not saying good on them, but I am impressed. I could not do that. So they were caught, so they are being charged with grand theft. Good for the police for catching up with them. Bad on the hotel. I would be surprised if the hotel manager did not get fired for that, because like multiple months, that's crazy. I would not be okay with that if I was that manager's boss. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and keep talking about some more weird news stories.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the Weird News Podcast. I have a weird news story for all of you. I mean, obviously that makes sense because it's the Weird News Podcast, but this is very strange, and I hope that I can explain it well enough. I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not really sure I can fully understand this, but it is still weird. I still know enough to know that it's strange. So there is a teen who translated a Bible verse into DNA and injected it into himself. That is the headline that I read, and I was like, this has got to go in Weird News, or in my nightmares, one or the other, probably both. So I am bringing this story straight from my nightmares to you. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, but probably also to your nightmares, if you're anything like me. This is creepy. Also, I don't like needles, which I don't know if I've mentioned in the Weird News Podcast, but I don't like needles. So the idea of injecting anything into yourself really freaks me out. So anyway, that brings us to this lovely story. So this took place in France. A French high schooler allegedly bioengineered DNA based on verses from both the Bible and the Quran and injected it into his leg. The teen is Adrien Locatelli, who is 16, and he is from Grenoble, France. And he posted a short paper to the Open Science Framework preprint server in which he claimed to produce strands of DNA that corresponded to verses from the Bible and the Quran. And then, according to him, he then injected the DNA containing the Bible verses into his left thigh and the DNA with the Quran verses into his right thigh. Again, I read this and I was already squirming, and it scares me quite a lot. I mean, okay, I will say why he did this, which he gives an answer, but let me just say, what is your underlying reason? Because I don't necessarily believe that your one reason is enough. I feel like the underlying reason is that you're kind of crazy. But anyway, we'll see. Or you just, I don't know. I would maybe not adrenaline seeking is the right word, but you just like risks. Okay. So Adrian said, I did this experiment only for the symbol of peace between religions and science. It's just symbolic. That's what he said. Again, I don't really believe that. I feel like you had some deeper intention or deeper meaning somehow for something. I don't know. Some meaning that I really don't want to understand, to be very frank. I really don't want to understand it. Well, I don't understand it, and I don't really think I want to. The proteins that Adrian created are basically just short strands of DNA, which is made of nucleotides that can only be combined in specific ways. All right, we're getting into the sciencey part, so I hope I'm explaining this correctly. Previous research has shown that artificial nucleotides can be used to store data, but so far they haven't actually been injected into a person. So again, I read this like they can store data. So I don't know. I don't think this will actually do anything to him, but I don't know. But the idea of like this is almost like bordering on like weird performance art. Like why? So then what? Would that just like, again, this is like, okay, this is probably a stupid idea, but is that just like, oh, I'll just know the Bible verses, like they'll just be in my DNA, like my religion is part of my DNA and part of who I am, and so I'll just know these Bible verses or know these like verses from the Quran, and like I'll just know them by heart or something. Like that's obviously not going to happen, but it's almost like symbolic. It feels like it's almost like symbolic of that, like this will become part of who I am, and then by combining them, like I will be this embodiment literally of these two religions coexisting. Like I guess that's maybe what he means when he says like a symbol of peace, but I don't know. I am so curious if these will actually do anything to him like permanently. It's very, I mean, besides the fact that people are going to write about it more, I'd be very curious to see how this really affects him long term. But this article continued to say that that Adrian said he matched various characters in the Hebrew alphabet to the nucleotides in order to produce a strand of DNA that corresponded to the first few verses of the book of Genesis in the Bible. In the paper he published, he said that a similar technique was used to then match individual letters in Arabic to translate the Quran into genetic code. Again, I wish I knew more science off the top of my head, but if he's doing this to then make it into genetic code, how does that affect him? How does that genetic code affect him? I don't know. Again, I am so curious to see the long-term effects of this, really. Not in like a gross, sadistic way. I mean, maybe you could interpret it that way, but I'm just curious. As like maybe like a creepy onlooker. Like I just want to know like if he gets hurt, which that sounds bad. Well, now it's recorded, so I've said it. Too bad. Okay. Continuing on. Also, Adrian said that the technique is known as recombinant adeno-associated virus, or RAAV, and let me say that again. Adrian used a technique known as recombinant adeno-associated virus, the RAAV, to write the biblical genetic code into the DNA of a virus. The DNA containing the Quranic verse was injected as a protein without the viral vector. He did not give details on how he cloned the gene into a viral vector in his paper. Also, he bought over $1,300 worth of E. coli stock and AAV2 virus from a place called Vector Builder. He said he had no prior experience with bioengineering. Apparently, he just did a 1-week internship in the Institute of Advanced Biosciences and in Grenoble. So that, again, makes me concerned. Also, he bought E. coli. These are all things that concern me. Adrian said, my father is a baker and my mom is accounting, so his parents are not in the sciences. My father agrees with the experiment, but I have not told my mother. Yeah, that sounds about right. Would not tell my mom. Don't tell your mom. I mean, now it's out in the news. I'm sure your mom will find out somehow, but still, would not. If my kid told me they injected themselves with a like DNA, like altered DNA, like virus for whatever, I would not be happy. Also, Adrian wrote that the viral injection caused a slight inflammation in his left thigh that lasted for about a day, whereas the injection of the straight protein did not produce any noticeable effects. So the one that was just a protein was verses from the Quran, and the one that was connected to the virus was verses from the Bible. I don't know if that's symbolic of something for him, but it's interesting. Also, he did get slight inflammation, which, again, this is not enough for me. I don't want to know just slight inflammation. I want to know long-term effects. Maybe I'll be let down. Maybe nothing will happen, but I just want to know. Also, this kid sounds like he's kind of crazy, like in a potentially genius way, but in a crazy way, like maybe like a Steve Jobs way, or a just like live in your parents' basement for the rest of your life type of way because you can't function. I don't know. We shall see. Also, his experiment rubbed many bioengineering researchers the wrong way. A biochemist from UCLA, Sri Kosuri, who has pioneered the idea of using DNA for data storage, wrote in a tweet that he was alerted to Adrian's stunt after Google Scholar unfortunately alerted him that he had been cited in Adrian's paper. He was not excited about that. He tweeted, 2018 can't end soon enough. I'm sure many people feel that way. His way is very specific, but many people feel that way. It's shared sentiment. He also continued, doing any human or animal experiments has risks associated with them. There are the ethics of the experiment that also must be considered. That is very true. This is not ethical. Granted, Adrian did it to himself. I don't know where that stands ethically. I'm not like a scientist of ethics or an expert in ethics. But yeah, that's not ethical to really do experiments like that. I don't know if this experiment, I wonder if this experiment will end up helping the scientific community, or if it'll just be a weird stunt that some kid pulled. I wonder if he'll regret it, or if he'll become a scientist and maybe learn more about what he did and somehow help the scientific community in the future. I am not sure. Also, Adrian said, I think that when people do not understand something, they are afraid of it. Bioengineering is something wonderful. I do not do anything dangerous. If it was so dangerous, I could not have bought these products on the internet. We will not ban knives because we can cut ourselves with them. I mean, that's true. We will not ban knives. But yeah. There are many things you can buy on the internet that can cause harm. So just because it's on the internet does not mean it's harmless. I mean, I get kind of the sentiment of we're not going to ban knives because we can cut ourselves with them. But then he's saying I did not buy anything dangerous. I don't know if I agree with that. That depends on your philosophy of dangerous and items, because there is the argument of a hammer is not dangerous until it is used, to bash someone's skull. Tools are not necessarily dangerous unless you use them for malicious purposes. I know there is that argument, which has a name that I cannot remember right now, but I don't know. This frightens me a little bit. I get queasy thinking about injections, so I wish him the best. I'm curious again to see where this goes. I will maybe keep you guys posted if I think I see something more interesting about it. Don't hold me to it though, because the story freaks me out a bit. So we are going to take another break, and then we'll return and continue on with some more weird news stories.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the Weird News Podcast. We are continuing with some weird news stories. Before the break, we talked about a young teenager who had injected bioengineered DNA into his body, which freaked me out. So we're going to a story that sort of freaks me out in a different way. More like freaks me out in like a doom and gloom, like depressed type of way, more than like a ooh, gross needles way. I'm not really sure that's much better though, but it's something different. So so that's nice. Anyway, this story is about someone who bought a fish for $3 million. This happened in Tokyo, and a 612-pound bluefin tuna sold for a record 333.6 million yen, which is $3 million, in the first auction of 2019. And this is after the Tokyo-famed, I hope I said this right, Tsukji market. I'm so sorry. This market was moved to a new site on the city's waterfront. The winning bid for the prized but threatened species at the auction was more than double the 2013 annual New Year auction. So this has gone up. The price has gone up, or at least the selling price went up. Also, these auctions happen like before dawn, which is crazy. I mean, maybe I would also buy a $3 million fish before dawn because I am not thinking straight. I would just think it looks cool. I also think fish are cool. But anyway, this was paid for by the Kiyomura Corporation. Not the auction was paid for. The fish was bought by this corporation. And the owner of this corporation, Kiyoshi Kimura, runs the Sushi Zenmai chain. And Kimura has often won the annual auction in the past. So this is like an annual auction that happens at this fish market. So like the new year, 2019, this annual auction seems like it happens every time around the beginning of the new year. And so the Japanese broadcaster NHK showed Kimura he was beaming and saying that he was surprised by the high price of tuna this year, but he added the quality of the tuna is the best. So I hope it is for $3 million. I hope that quality is the best. Also, the auction prices are way above usual for bluefin tuna. The tuna normally sells for up to $40 a pound, but the price has risen to over $200 a pound during the year, and especially for the prized catches from Oma in northern Japan. So the price has definitely gone up. I'm not really sure why the tuna from Oma in northern Japan is more sought after, but overall the price is going up for all the bluefin tuna. Last year's auction was the last at the market before it moved to a new facility. The facility now is on a former gas plant site on Tokyo Bay. The move was actually delayed due to concerns over soil contamination, which, yeah, that's bad, especially if you're selling like fish to eat. That is a serious concern. It was repeatedly delayed, which I understand why. Also, the Japanese are the biggest consumer of the bluefin tuna, and the surging consumption basically everywhere, so Japan and overseas, has led to overfishing of the species, which I don't know. I mean, we're talking about a big fish, 612-pound fish, but if you ever go to an aquarium and see a bluefin tuna, it is huge. It is crazy. Whenever someone says tuna, I think of sushi, and I love tuna and sushi, although you shouldn't eat too much of it because tuna does have a lot of mercury, and you don't want to risk mercury poisoning by eating too much sushi. But it also makes me think of the Will Ferrell movie, like The Good Guy, or no. Oh, shoot. No, I'm going to forget it. But there's a scene in the movie where Will Ferrell talks about how he's going to be a bluefin tuna and beat up Mark Wahlberg, who said he's going to be like a tiger or something. And I really like that scene. I think it's hilarious. Man, I cannot remember the name of that movie. I am so sad about that. But anyway, the tuna is being overfished, which concerns me. I love tuna, just to eat, and then also to admire, because I love looking at a tuna in an aquarium because it's huge. It's like a really mighty fish. I love watching it swim around because if you look at it compared to the other fish, it's just gigantic. It just dwarfs any other fish. I think it's cool. And I'm really sad that it is being like overfished, obviously, because like the taste for it is going up, because I feel like the taste for tuna has gone up. So I am quite sad just that is happening, because I love the fish. But anyway, experts are warning of the possible extinction of this fish. Apparently the stocks of the Pacific bluefin has been depleted by 96% from the pre-industrial levels. So the amount of Pacific bluefin tuna has been depleted by 96%. That is crazy. Also, I did remember the Will Ferrell movie is The Good Guys, which is what it's The Other Guys. I apologize. So, anyway, I find the movie very funny, and I just can't think of tuna without thinking about Will Ferrell's quote about his family becoming tuna and then going up to beat Marky Mark's family. Anyway, the celebration surrounding the annual Pacific bluefin auction unfortunately kind of hides how deeply the trouble is with the species. So I guess this auction also is just tuna, not necessarily other fish. But there are signs of progress towards protecting the bluefin. Japan and other governments have backed plans to rebuild just the amount of bluefin tuna in the seas. There is a target of 20% of the historic levels by 2034. So hopefully that will occur. There is progress towards legislation to protect the tuna. Also, the decades-old Tsukji. I'm so sorry, everyone. The decades-old market was one of Japan's most popular tourist destinations, as well as the world's biggest fish market. And the new market, which opened in October. They're like businesses that have stayed where the location of the old market was, but basically nearly all of them, which is around 500 plus wholesalers and businesses, has changed to this new location. Also, if you're curious, the old location of this market is due to be redeveloped, but for now it has been turned into a parking lot in preparation for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, which is interesting. It's always interesting to me how cities have to change to prepare to host the Olympics. Like, just the amount of infrastructure is crazy. I don't know. It blows my mind. Along with the size of tuna. Also blows my mind. But thank you all so much for listening. That is the end of our show. And I hope you can tune in to the next Weird News episode.